In this video, I'm going to show 4 heartbreaking vacation disasters that redefined laws, changed norms, or left permanent scars on the world. These aren't just global tragedies. They're deeply personal stories of individuals whose lives were forever altered by an unthinkable turn of events. From the fear of being trapped to the gut-wrenching loss of loved ones, these stories show how quickly a dream vacation can turn into a nightmare. Let's begin with the journey of Coach Ekapol and his boys. In June 2018, Ekapol Chantawong, a 25-year-old coach, took his youth soccer team to explore the Tam Luang Cave in northern Thailand. The boys, aged 11 to 16, had never been on such an adventure before, and for Ekapol, it was a chance to bond with his players and reflect on his past as a former monk. But what began as a fun excursion soon turned into a nightmare. As the team ventured deeper into the cave, heavy rains began to fall. The entrance was quickly flooded, trapping the group in the dark, narrow tunnels. Ekapol's heart sank as he realized the gravity of their situation. The rising water meant they were stuck. The cave, which they had entered freely, had become a prison. Ekapol, who had led them here, felt responsible. The realization that their survival depended on him was crushing. For days, he kept the boys calm, rationing food and water, trying to maintain their hope despite the terrifying uncertainty. The weight of knowing that their only chance of survival rested on an improbable rescue was overwhelming. After 18 days, the world watched as a global rescue operation unfolded. The boys were saved, but for Ekapol, the emotional scars would last. The relief of seeing the boys safe was tempered by a haunting guilt that never fully left him. The rescue may have been a miracle, but the trauma that followed was real, both for Ekapol and the boys who survived. Dan Fredenberg, a Google executive with a passion for adventure, had always dreamed of conquering the summit of Mount Everest. In April 2015, he found himself at Everest Base Camp, preparing for what he hoped would be the crowning achievement of his mountaineering career. He was no stranger to climbing, and the expedition had seemed like the perfect adventure for someone who lived for challenges. But the Earth had other plans. On April 25th, a 7.8 magnitude earthquake struck Nepal, sending shockwaves through the region. Within moments, a massive avalanche swept through Everest Base Camp, engulfing the area in snow and debris. Dan, along with many others, was caught in the avalanche's deadly path. Dan's friends, who had been with him on the climb, watched helplessly as the avalanche struck. The last communication they received from him was a message saying he was okay, but that would be the last time they heard from him. In the chaos of the aftermath, Dan's body was never recovered, and it was later confirmed that he had tragically perished in the disaster. Dan's family and friends were left heartbroken. His death not only sparked an international conversation about the dangers of Everest expeditions, but also left an emotional void that could never be filled. His adventurous spirit was forever silenced by the uncontrollable forces of nature. In 1996, Doug Hansen, an experienced climber with a deep love for the mountains, was determined to reach the summit of Mount Everest. He had tried before but had to turn back due to exhaustion. But this time, he was determined not to fail. Guided by Rob Hall, one of the most renowned Everest guides, Doug and his team began their ascent. The air was thin, the winds harsh, but Doug pressed on, driven by the dream of standing at the top of the world. The summit was within reach when the weather began to worsen. Despite warnings from Hall and other climbers, the team continued. They had no idea that time was running out. As they reached the summit, the weather turned catastrophic. A fierce storm descended upon the mountain, and Doug, along with several others, was stranded in the most dangerous spot imaginable. At the top of the world, in the middle of a snowstorm, with no way to descend. The storm, combined with their exhaustion, made the descent impossible. Doug's fate was sealed when Hall made the heart-wrenching decision to leave Doug behind. Hall was aware that Doug, too tired to descend safely, would not make it. But the storm was unforgiving, and Doug was one of the many casualties that year. Doug's death, and the deaths of others in the same expedition, became a turning point in the history of Everest expeditions. New safety regulations were put in place to prevent such avoidable tragedies. But for Doug's family, it would never erase the loss of a beloved son and brother. In 2011, Brian and Janet Larkins were on what should have been a dream vacation in Japan. The couple, eager to experience Japan's culture and beautiful coastline, had traveled to the city of Sendai. Everything was perfect: the food, the sights, the people. Until March 11th, when the world they knew was ripped apart by an earthquake. A massive 9.0 magnitude earthquake shook the ground, triggering a tsunami that devastated Japan's coastline. Brian and Janet, who were caught in Sendai, watched in horror as the ocean's waves began to swallow the city. In a panic, the couple tried to find safety, but the tsunami hit faster than they could imagine. The waves crashed through their hotel, and Brian and Janet were separated in the chaos. Each fought desperately to survive in the rising water. The fear, the confusion, and the helplessness were overwhelming. Janet, caught in the madness, was washed away, and Brian feared the worst. Miraculously, Brian found Janet hours later. They survived, but the trauma of the tsunami would forever haunt them. Their once peaceful vacation had turned into a nightmare that changed their lives forever. The disaster also had a lasting effect on how tourism industries in disaster-prone areas prepare for emergencies. Brian and Janet's survival story became one of many that reminded the world how unpredictable and devastating nature can be when we least expect it.